Anytime a family will stand up behind me and be in agreement with what's happening in the courtroom, I feel good. I mean, it's a murder. It's a very sad occasion. It's devastating for the family, especially when it's domestic. But I think the family, you know, they like the fact that we got it over within a reasonable amount of time, and you know, they got to hear the man who killed their mother say that he was guilty and take responsibility. So I feel, you know, as good as you can feel about this type of case.
Yeah, it's this case seemed to go pretty quickly compared to a lot of cases that are happening these days, because you guys are a little bit behind still, I guess, trying to catch up.
Right, and anytime a defendant chooses to have a jury trial, that's going to take more time. In this case, he, you know, wanted to take responsibility, and so we went back and forth with some negotiations as far as choosing a number. We, of course, would not have done this plea agreement without the family's approval. And once we got their approval for a number and the defendant was in agreement with that number, we went forward. So as long as the defendant is willing to take responsibility for what he's done, those cases can move faster. It's when they want a jury trial that tends to slow the system down, of course.
And I guess there were no questions as far as his mental stability, right?
Didn't seem to be. I mean, he's always been very clear anytime he's been in court, and of course that's something that his attorney and the judge discussed in the ex parte hearing prior to the plea, to make sure that he was mentally competent and there weren't any issues with his mental health currently.
Do you think the victim impact statement helps the family when they're able to do that?
It always seems to me. It gives them power. They get to take a little bit of their power back, and very frequently the defendants, you know, they have their head down, they don't make eye contact, but it just gives the family just an opportunity to let everybody know how this has impacted them and what their family member was like. And you know, I think that's really good and powerful for the family, because we generally in these cases only talk about the defendant, and we hear very little about the victim unless we're in a jury trial, of course. And so it gives them the opportunity to let the court know something other than just the victim's name, and I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, I could see how a lot of families would think that was important, because you know, some families decide not to do it.
They do, and I think sometimes because it's so emotional, and especially when the defendant won't look at them or acknowledge them, I think that's very disheartening. But sometimes it's just too emotional to get through. Very often we'll get a written victim impact statement, but the family just can't read it or can't stand up in court just because they can't handle the emotion of it. And so sometimes we'll read those out, and sometimes it's just enough for them to have written it out.
All right. I guess in cases like this, murder cases, big crimes like this, did those cases get expedited and kind of jump over some of the other trials and things?
You know, really, they actually kind of slow down, because we want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. You know, in cases like this, we're looking at firearm and tool mark examinations, DNA reports, and so because of the backlog across the state with the forensic examinations, sometimes those cases take a really long time. And when we get those reports back, sometimes it means that we need to do different tests. So I think these cases, the murder cases, the aggravated robberies take longer because of the things that we have to do with them as far as forensics.